do want to start the meeting this month and thank everyone for being here at our June Franklin Grandal Community Partnership meeting. As many of you know, this partnership has been way before 2009 when the state stopped the funding of coordinators, because there used to be coordinators per each region of the state that were doing the partnerships, and in 2009 that was dissolved. This is the only partnership that still meets in the state of Vermont, which all of you should be very proud of that we're talking about 14 years since it ended, so that's pretty amazing. So, as we typically do, we're going to start this morning's meeting with introductions. And as most of you know, in the introduction, your name, your title, your organization, and this month we're going to go back to something that you're grateful for. It could be work-related, it could be personal, and you have 40 seconds to do that. If you go over the 40 seconds, get the magic bell, and also first-time attendees get the bell as a welcome. And I need to go get my phone, and why don't we start?
Are you going to start tweeting, or?
No, I want to.
I know. Okay, so I'm going to start with the people who are on the Zoom. I'll call you as you appeared on my screen coming in. So first I have Adam. Adam Kirsch. Okay, it looks like you're not muted, Adam, but we can't hear you, and I'm wondering if it's on our end. Just bear with us. I'm not hearing anybody on Zoom. Try again.
I also heard now.
There we go. We got you now. Okay, we got it fixed on this end. Sorry. Can we ask you to start over, Adam? My apologies.
No worries at all. Yeah, I'm Adam Kirsch. I'm a public health specialist, chronic disease designee for the Vermont Department of Health, based out of the St. Albans office. And I'm grateful for my dog. He's pretty great.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. No, this isn't your first time, right?
No.
To this meeting. Okay. Amanda Reed. Thank you, Adam. Amanda?
Good morning, I'm Amanda. I'm one of the community health workers at the St. Albans Health Center. And I'm muting because my roommate has her voice out on too. I am thankful for summertime and school coming to an end and the summer activity starting.
Wonderful. Thank you, Amanda. Becky?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Becky Gadju. I'm the home visiting supervisor for Champlain Valley Head Start. I'm most grateful for getting my garden in. I really look forward to the harvest.
Great. Thank you, Becky. Haley?
Hi, good morning. I'm Haley Schreiner. I'm the resource coordinator in Bridget United Way of Northwest Vermont. I'm also excited about my garden. I've had really terrible luck with beans the last few years. And this year I planted pinto beans and they're all like really, really happy. And I'm so excited to eat them.
Great. Thank you, Haley. Courtney?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Courtney Manahan. I am the Community Relations Coordinator at Northwestern Medical Center. Today, I am grateful for rain. Our flowers in our yard really needed it. So yeah, unusual, but I'm thankful for rain today.
Thank you, Courtney. Denise?
Hi, everybody. Denise Smith. Work at Northwestern Medical Center as well, Director of Population Health, and oversee the Blueprint program in the region. I'm going to go with Courtney's because I was thinking the same thing. Everything needed a little rain. I got my garden in, and I'm so, yeah, everything was happy, and the rain makes it all green, so I'm very happy.
Thank you, Denise. Jackie?
Hello, I'm Jackie Kelly. I am the Emergency Preparedness Specialist at the Office of Local Health, and I'm grateful for my family.
Thank you. Janine.
Hi, I am Janine. I'm the Development Director for Vermont Adult Learning. I'm actually signing on from New Jersey today, and I'm very grateful to be inside. The quality is not good. So I'm hoping maybe some of that rain y'all are talking about will come this way or bring some wind that will clear things up a little bit.
Thank you, Janine. Jen. Is Jen still with us? Jen Peace?
Oh, I'm Jen Peace, RN Care Coordinator at Notch Primary Care. I am also thankful for the rain. I didn't have to water my plants last night or this morning.
Pretty awesome, thank you. And would you like to also introduce yourself, since we have you on screen?
I am Kylie Brennan. I am the nurse care coordinator at the St. Albans Health Center, and I am grateful to have a lot of family coming in town this weekend because my brother is getting married, so a lot of people I haven't seen in a while.
Fantastic, thank you, Kylie. And Jess Graff?
Morning, everyone. I'm Jess Graff. I'm the director of Franklin Grand Isle Community Action, a program of CVOEO, Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity. And I've been extremely grateful over the last couple of weeks for our United Way funding that allowed us to be able to purchase tents and camping gear to distribute with the first round of motel exits that happened last Thursday. It's certainly a double-edged sword, but really grateful to have that as a last resort option for people who needed it.
Thank you, Jess. And Jessica?
Hi, I'm Jessica Moore. I'm the minister at First Congregational Church, United Church of Christ in St. Albans. And I am thankful so I have a friend visiting, and he spent his teen years in England, and he became a football hooligan wannabe while he was there. And so he's a big West Ham United fan. There's a game today. He's visiting. So we're going to watch that, and he'll teach me all the appropriate chants to go along with that. So I'm pretty good.
Thank you, Jessica. Karen?
Hi, Karen Heinlein-Granger, Executive Director at the Turning Point of Franklin County. And I'm on board with Grateful for the Rain Showers.
Thank you, Karen. Katie?
Hi, I'm Katie DeForge. I'm the Operations Manager at the Turning Point of Franklin County. And today I'm grateful for the cooler weather. Last week was too hot.
Thank you, Katie. Karen Garand?
Good morning, I'm Karen Garand. I'm a public health nurse for the Department of Health. My focus is school health as well as chronic disease. I am also thankful for the rain, and hopefully it'll spruce up our lawn because it's looking pretty brown and crunchy.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen. Matthew?
Yes, greetings everyone. My name is Matthew Buffalo. I use he, him pronouns. Yes, my title is, the UVM CCI and UVM Austin Collaborative for the state of Vermont statewide. I'm thankful for more community involvement around the issues portraying Vermont's culture, but also Vermont's communities in general. That's what I'm most thankful for, is to become more involved in help out communities that need it the most. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthew. Megan?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Megan Bridges from United Way, Northwest Vermont. I'm Community Impact and Funding Manager here. And I am grateful. I attended the Franklin Grand Isle Continuum of Care meeting on Monday, and I am grateful for those folks who are doing such hard work, Jess and all the others, to take care of those folks who are in need right now of help as they're exiting the motels. And it was very encouraging to see the care that's happening in Franklin County and the hard work they're doing. And I'm also grateful just for your shout out to the funding that United Way provides, the flexible funding that allows you to use those funds just like you are doing in emergency situations. So thank you all.
Thank you. Michelle?
Good morning, Michelle Tria with the Norfolk Support Services Parent-Child Center. I too, like Megan, would like to give a shout out to Jess and her crew. They're doing fantastic work. And I'd also like to give a shout out to the amazing superheroes we have at all the food shelves and at Martha's Kitchen, who are really having to ramp up what they're doing right now to meet the needs. So shout out to all of them.
Great, thank you, Michelle. Senator Irene Renner?
Good morning, everyone. My district is Chittenden North, which includes one town in Franklin County, which is Fairfax. So I'm always glad to be here. I haven't been able to be here during the session, but I'm back. And I'm grateful for Ruth over my house and about all those folks who are losing access to child workers. So, thank you.
Thank you. Tamar?
Good morning. I'm Tamar Bouchard. I'm the Transitional Housing Coordinator for Voices Against Violence. Yeah, the rain, that sky was awfully dark and the air was very heavy last night. Also, my grass is brown. Also, my flowers were happy. So, yes, yes, yes.
Thank you, Tamar. Is there anybody on Zoom that I have missed?
Looks like there's 11 things in the chat, Melinda. I don't know if
Yeah,
there's
I've checked them on
anything.
this side.
Oh, okay, you're on it?
Yeah.
She's, yeah.
Of course you are.
Nice of you to ask for it.
Just trying to have your back.
I appreciate
Just want to
it.
make sure you're on the task.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, there's nobody else on the Zoom that we missed. We're gonna move to the room, and I'm gonna start to my left with Brad.
I'm Brad Ferlin. I'm co-chair with Melinda for the Substance Use Addiction Summit. It'll be our second annual one at the fairgrounds on August 11th, and it was a big event. We're looking forward to another big event. I am grateful for the rain. My daughter, I have a 13-year-old daughter. We have sheep on Hathaway Point, and we do rotational grazing. And you can't get the fence posts into the ground when it's this hard, so it's, the rain will help a lot.
Awesome, thank you.
I'm Representative Mike McCarthy. I chair the House Government Operations and Military Affairs Committee in the House, and I represent the city of St. Albans, and I'm really grateful to have a safe home to live in and really awesome neighbors.
Hi everyone, my name is Matt Lyon, as my card will indicate, but I need to get used to my last name because my wife and I hyphenated, so one of these days, like I'm gonna be sleeping in the doghouse if I don't remember that's changed. But I'm the Access Case Manager, here at NCSS. I'm the boots on the ground helping individuals like obtain resources that they may not have. And I'm most grateful for the unity that I have seen the past few weeks. I've worked alongside Jess Graff over at the Cadillac as well as Econo Lodge, and just being here with you guys, seeing that unity piece is very important to me. So it's an honor to be here, and thanks for having me.
And Matt, this is your first time, so.
Yeah.
You get the bell. Welcome.
We have a song
Yeah,
and
you
dance
have
at the
your,
end.
your alma mater. You have to sing your alma mater song at the end.
Hi, I'm Faith DuBois. I am a community health worker with the Alameda Nation of Assistway, working under the COVID, chronic disease, and heritage corn grants currently. And I am looking for all the green things because this is my favorite time of year.
Good morning. Today is my first day here, and I'm happy to be here. My name is Debbie DuBois Lavoie, and I am with the Abenaki Nation of Assistway. I am food pantry manager, office manager, and I wear a lot of other different hats, so I'm not really sure of my job description. And I'm very grateful for my family and my mission at Abenaki Nation of Assistway. Thank you.
Welcome, Debbie.
Welcome.
We're gonna have lots of songs.
Yeah.
Good morning, Nicole Cunningham, Regional Coordinator of the My Healthy BT programs at NMC as part of the Population Health team. And I am most grateful today for the health of all 4 of my children so that I could be here in person with all of you, and the rain, because I didn't have to water the garden.
We're over here?
We are.
Good morning, Bob Norris, Senator for Franklin District, to include Alberg. I sit on 2 committees, Senate Judiciary and Senate Gov Ops, and the other committees I won't even mention, but because I haven't sat on them yet, so we haven't really started the summer committees. But I'm grateful for 2 things. One, first and foremost, is family. And secondly, is I finally found someone who took my 5 remaining chickens. Not for eating purposes, but to continue. And so that individual now has over 50 chickens, to include the 5 that I have. So I'm just thankful to be here and all the work that you folks do.
I'm Senator Randy Brock. I represent also Franklin County and Alberg in Grand Isle County in the Senate. I am also the Senate Minority Leader. I am grateful for the wonderful turnout of hundreds of people at our various Memorial Day events this past weekend throughout the county. And the fact that so many people who were there recognized that it was a time of remembrance and not one of celebration.
Hi, I'm Megan Malbuff. This is my first meeting. I'm from NCSS, and I'm the program manager of adult outpatient and the integrated health services. So those are the social workers in the doctor's offices. So work-wise, yeah, I'm very grateful for the teams I work with, both my NCSS teams and my community partnership teams. There's a lot of really good work happening in this community. And at home, I have 3 kids, so I'm always grateful for summer and kind of more outdoor fun time together.
Welcome, Megan.
Welcome.
I'm Stephanie Comstock. I'm the director of the Spectrum Drop-In Center on Lake Street. I'm incredibly grateful for my staff right now. They are solid, especially after move-out day, giving out tents, all that really hard to do stuff when you have an 18-year-old camping out. But we're getting through it. And on another note, I'm really grateful for little mini reunions. I've had a 40th birthday party where it was like a little mini high school reunion, and then a 60th birthday party that was pretty much a Corrections Academy reunion from 2003. So it was really cool.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Devin Bevins. I am a part of the Integrated Primary Prevention Team for Vermont National Guard. And I am grateful for Vermont's outdoor recreation this time of year. I had a beautiful walk at 5 a.m. yesterday morning with my puppy at Mill River, and I don't know if you saw the orange sun, but it was like right over Mount Mansfield. It was absolutely stunning, and I am grateful for that.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Peterson. I'm the Regional Director for Vermont Adult Learning in Franklin Grand Isle counties. I'm also the Chair of the Community High School of Vermont Advisory Board, which is Vermont's correction-based high school. I am super grateful for the amazing staff I have at Val and the wonderful students we have there. We are wrapping up another year. Tomorrow actually is our graduation ceremony at 6 p.m. at City Hall in St. Albans in their auditorium. It will be streamed on Northwest Access Television at 6 o'clock if anyone wants to tune in, or you're welcome to come attend the ceremony itself. We've got 13 graduates who decided they wanted to walk in our graduation, so that's awesome. We have 2 English language learning students who completed our ELL program, and a number of students who will be inducted into the National Adult Education Honor Society. So super excited for all of them, and really grateful for the amazing staff that saw them through this year. I kept it under 40.
You did, but I'm going to get it. Eric used to be famous for like really being right at
Pushing the limit.
Pushing the envelope, so to speak, pushing the belt. Yeah.
I'm John Gordon, the Sheldon Methodist Church Food Shelf, and one thing that I'm probably most thankful for, those of us that run food shelves, one of the biggest things we face is people who are embarrassed. They're unhappy. They're really have trouble that they have to come to a food shelf, and This past month, on 2 different occasions, I literally had people walk in the door, look me in the eye, and say, I love to come to this food shelf. And that life doesn't get much better than that. And while we needed the rain, I was baling hay yesterday, and I literally stuffed the last round bale of hay in the shed about 10 minutes before it started to rain yesterday afternoon.
Thank you, John. I'm Joe Halco, Director of Community Relations here at Northwestern Counseling and Support Services, and I have a bunch, and I'm going to get them in under 40 seconds. Some have been mentioned. When Courtney first said rain, the first thing that went through my mind is rain now, Courtney, not next Friday, because that's our charity golf tournament between NMC and NCSS on the 16th. Memorial Day, and the reason that we should look at Memorial Day and remember, Senator Brock mentioned that. I think that's critically important. Sometimes that gets lost. Spongy moths. We have had to endure them over the last 2 summers, and let me tell you, that's not fun. Can't go out on the deck. You can't go out in your yard. I mean, they're everywhere. They're destructive to the trees, as many of you may know. Anyway, after 2 years of being just infested with them, there are none this year, so actually we can live a life for about 6 more weeks during the summer months. And last but certainly not least is all of the work that our legislators are doing each and every year, and especially this year where I know it's been very difficult and you have to reconvene again. But just know that Vermonters truly appreciate all of the hard work that you put into trying to make the right decisions with a pot of money that's only so big. So again, thanks for everything that you do.
Hey, I want to know how Stephanie is 60 and 40 in the same year.
I was thinking the same thing. That was a 20-year boom. Just
when you said 40, I said, okay, that makes sense. I was just, 60. I'm like, wait a minute, how does that work?
Someone from my
I can use that time travel.
A good friend turned 60.
My name is Melinda White. I am a SAMHSA program manager at the Howard Center, a recovery coach in the emergency department through the Turning Point Franklin County, and also serve on the board of directors of VTAR. I'm grateful for the passing of the bill H222, and also grateful for our legislators. I'm grateful that this Saturday is the Walk in Their Shoes homelessness awareness event. So hoping as many people as possible can make it to that event, and we send out flyers, and I'll send some more out later too. I know this isn't the announcement portion, but I do sometimes manipulate this part of my gratitude list. I'm also
there you go.
And I'm also grateful that this year is going to be our 2nd annual Substance Use Addiction Summit on Friday, August 11th at the Champlain Valley Expo, and we will have upwards of potentially up to 100 booth holders, including some fantastic speakers, bringing some people from out of state as well as within our state to share about substance use in Vermont. And we already identify gaps really well, but we want to focus on the solutions, and hopes that some of the amazing programs happening in different parts of the state can be replicated by other parts of the state, being able to see it is happening and this is how they do it. So really hoping for a humongous turnout, including public, to show up and learn how to help their loved ones or themselves find recovery. Is that 40 seconds?
Well, in someone's world it is. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. And as those of you who have been here for a period of time know, that we always want to start the meeting the way we did, because first of all, there's such a variety of organizations that are always being represented. And a lot of them, many of you collaborate with throughout the course of the year. And I will tell you from this meeting, there have been collaborations that were started because of people who met in this room or room and screen, and are able to maximize resources and minimize and not do duplication. The last thing we want to do is have programs that all duplicate one another. And anyway, this group has been able to do some of that work. So with that, approval of the May minutes is next, and I know I sent in your packets the minutes, and you also have them in front of you. If we could get a motion to approve the minutes of the May 3rd meeting.
I just want to know how come my cow picture wasn't in the meeting minutes.
You're asking me that? Well, why wasn't it?
I forgot. Can you
Okay.
send it to me again and we'll post it?
Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the May 3rd?
I'll motion.
You're gonna motion?
I'll motion.
And a second.
With the correction in next minutes.
We'll have a cow.
And a second.
A second.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, any further discussion?
Can we shift that to speaker view?
It is on speaker view.
It is.
Or to not speaker view, but to.
Yep.
Okay.
Can I make the announcement too? So just really quickly, one more reminder, anybody who is new with us, this is your first meeting on Zoom, if you can put your email address in the chat so we can add you to our listserv. And then also people in the room, there's an attendance list going around, and if you could make sure to sign in and include your email address so we have it accurately, that would be fantastic. We're also recording this meeting with our wonderful friends with Northwest Access TV, so I want to take a moment, give Alan a chance to introduce himself now instead of waiting till the end this time. We're going to try not to make too big a fanfare and embarrass you. And then also let people know that I'm going to be hitting the record button once we're done Alan's introduction so we can have a Zoom recording in addition to Northwest. So
That was my fault last time. Sorry, Alan.
All right. I'm Alan Cunningham from Northwest Access TV, and I'm grateful for an indoor shoot today. Because the softball game yesterday was not a lot of fun.
wonderful. And now I'm going to hit record.
And if I can just.
Recording in progress.
And if I can just say that for any of your organizations that have been thinking about utilizing Northwest Access TV to promote either your mission or some of your programs, please consider it. You know, it's a great medium for getting your information out locally. And then secondly, it's something that can live on their YouTube channel. You can create a YouTube channel so that that content you can point people to in times that you can't be there in person to talk to them. So anyway, Northwest Access Television is a terrific resource for Franklin County.
Can I
Just
piggyback
wanted
on
to-
that, Joe?
Sure.
Yeah, no, Northwest Access Television has been doing Vermont Adult Learning's graduations now for a number of years and rebroadcasting them later, but at the height of the pandemic, when we really had to limit number of guests and we were having to adopt strategies like doing outdoor mini graduations to try to keep people safe. They were really awesome in working with us and said, you know, have you considered live streaming this? So they worked with us to do that, and even now that we're moving out of the pandemic a little bit into a safer territory, we're continuing to do that. So if grandma and grandpa in Tucson can't make it and want to see the event, they're able to do that. So they've been just super helpful and accommodating with us every year.
Yeah, before we go further, first of all, we need to just vote yay or nay. I was asking if there was any further discussion. There was, but on other topics. So anyway, all in favor of the May 3rd minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, and the ayes have it. During the pandemic, okay, we have something here at Northwestern Counseling every May, usually in May, called, what was called Night of the Arts. And this year they transitioned that to be called Celebration of the Arts. But the reason I bring this up is this is a night in the lives of some of the most challenging clients that we have who live day in and day out with extreme mental health conditions. They have an opportunity to perform on stage, whatever they like. Could be poetry, dance, music, art, comedy, doesn't matter. So anyway, every May we do that. Well, then the pandemic hit. And as we all know, nobody was meeting in person. There were no gatherings. That was going to have to be put out of sight until we got through the pandemic, until somebody had an idea in our Community Rehabilitation and Treatment Services group. They said, what if, do you think Northwest Access TV would be willing to let our clients come in and then do a person-by-person shoot of their performance? Then we'll take those performances and have a streamed event take place. Anybody could join, certainly. So anyway, they were more than willing to do that. the clients were overwhelmed because they got to see a television station, they got to get different backgrounds depending on what they were doing. Anyway, my point is Northwest Access is so flexible in the things that they will do for this community. And I will tell you that to the clients that perform, that particular event is one of the biggest things in their lives each year. It gives them, and by the way, many of them perform in a way that you or I would say, holy cow, I'm not getting up there on stage and doing that, you know. But anyway, I just wanted to do another shout out because of that meant so much, and it was such a different way of going about it that really made the client's day even greater. And it was because of collaboration again with a community partner. So with that, what I'd like to do, as we always do, and it's a little different this year because the session truly is not quote unquote over, but as we typically do, we'd like to hear from each of our legislators on where things stand, you know, depending on the committees they're on and all that sort of thing. Then I'd like to open it up for all of you to be able to ask questions from your perspective about either where certain bills stand or just maybe something that's going on legislatively that you'd like to learn more about or you'd like to make the legislators aware of. So I think it's really just a great opportunity to be able to have a conversation here this morning and talk about a variety of topics and what's important to you and your organization, as well as what's important to the legislators as well and what they're dealing with. Because bear in mind, you know, even though all of us have our asks and wishes that we would like as organizations, they are being bombarded by individuals and organizations from every walk of life. It's not just about human services. It's so much greater than that. So, you know, we get a little bit of an opportunity to be able to get into their world, but you have to realize, so too does agriculture, transportation, you know, the climate, on and on it goes. So I always want people to be aware of that's one of the reasons that because I've lived in other states and the legislators in those states, it was their job, period. They weren't running businesses or working in businesses as well as trying to be legislators. So when you look at our legislators and what they have to deal with day in and day out with businesses and all of that beyond being a legislator, it's pretty amazing. So again, I want to tip my hat, if I had a hat. And I think what we'll do is we'll just start over here on the left with Senator Norris. We'll work our way around the room and then Irene on screen, if that'll work for everybody, and then we'll go from there. So, Senator, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. I mean, I didn't come with any speech prepared, obviously, you're welcome. But basically, I'm still a freshman legislator. I spent my first 2 years in the House, and thanks to hopefully some of you folks in this room, I moved to the other chamber, which is the Senate. And I'm still a freshman now in the Senate. So the senior members here obviously have been around much longer than I have. But like I said earlier, I sit on Senate Judiciary and Senate Gov Ops. Now I don't have, there's a multitude of bills that we have dealt with in and throughout the 18-week session, and we're going back in June here obviously for a veto session and clean up on any other bills that may need to be cleaned up on. But I think some of the biggest achievements that we've taken, and don't quote me because there's many that I may miss here. S3, I'm fortunate to remember that. S3, which was the paramilitary training camp bill, I believe it was, which went through Representative McCarthy, which I thought was a good bill because basically it says that we just can't allow people to come into Vermont, and it stemmed from Slate Ridge, okay? We can't allow people to come into Vermont and start training and exercising to create civil disobedience in and throughout Vermont or anywhere else. And while looking at that, I asked Ledge Council and many other people as to if there was any, in their interpretation of the bill, any violations there whatsoever of the Second Amendment. And I was wholeheartedly told that, no, there's no violations of the Second Amendment. This is a good bill, it's a clean bill. Actually, it came from, I believe, the Florida model of their bill. So the paramilitary camp training bill was a good one in my mind. The other one, which was S4, there's two in a row I've hit now, had to deal with guns. Had to deal with a lot of problems in certain cities within southern Vermont, but I think that it was a good bill. We passed it out. I believe it had to have gone to, no, I was in judiciary, I'm sorry, Mike. So the bill in itself was good as far as they eliminated some portions of the gun bill, but there are certain portions in the bill that were good. And I was trying to think of what other bill, oh, one that comes to mind is, and this is where you're going to get me, I just asked something. It had to do with hospitals, medical personnel being attacked and or injured while on duty. We met jointly with other committees. The bill was passed. It's to protect our workers. Basically, law enforcement could respond, and if it wasn't an on-site violation or a witness misdemeanor, they couldn't remove individuals. And with this new bill, they can simply take a statement from someone who was threatened, someone who was injured, unfortunately, and then remove that individual. But having said that, my concern with the bill was that a lot of these individuals are sitting in the hospital emergency rooms awaiting a bed to open up someplace, which we all realize is there's not a lot of beds available in the state of Vermont. So that therefore, specific reasons, they may not be medical at that point in time, but if in fact law enforcement arrives and removes them, then what do they do with these individuals? Clearly that it's already been dictated that they need a bed someplace so they can go to seek the help that they need. And the hospital may not be willing to take that individual back into the hospital. There's no beds available. So there was a bit of a problem with the bill, but the first and foremost thing we had to do was protecting our health workers. And so that's why I supported the bill. It's not a perfect bill. As I was talking to Melinda, there's a lot of bills that came through aren't perfect. We may need tweaking later on down the road. But, you know, we're not perfect individuals sitting on those committees down here, to be forthright. So, in GovOps, by any means, afterwards, if you have questions or whatever, bills that may come to mind, please ask me, because I don't have all the bills off the top of my head here. Like I'm sure my two counterparts will. In Senate GovOps, I still got that House thing going on. In Senate GovOps, we dealt with a lot of things from ranked choice voting to allowing our military members. There was, I believe it's H429. I believe that came out of House GovOps, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, that's all right. So miscellaneous elections bill.
All right, so I'll let Representative McCarthy speak more on that, obviously, but I think it's still in the Senate.
We've got one more vote. One
more vote, which will probably take place in June here, but there was a multitude of bills that we dealt with, and what I do is, such as Joe had mentioned, we do get inundated with not so much phone calls because our phone numbers aren't readily available. S5 was huge. The affordable, or some people may recognize it as the unaffordable. Anyways, depending which way you lean, the HEAT Act. I received hundreds and hundreds of them, and I try to answer everything as best I can, but I can't possibly respond to all of those emails, those texts, whatever else. And a lot of them are group oriented as far as they'll just put together a format, have you sign your name to send it out in a group email, whatever else. So S5 certainly caught a lot of attention. And there was another one which eludes me, but what I do take pride in is if in fact I come across bills that I don't really have the answers on, there's some folks in this room can attest to this, that I will reach out to individuals to get what I consider their expert opinion on certain things. Whether it's page 222, I think, and there was another one where they wanted to lift the potency level of THC on certain products, and I have to know some local individuals who deal more directly with that, but I don't have all the answers, so that's why I reach out. The public or the individuals that I know in the community are just as important as what I do down there, because without their input, without their information, I probably wouldn't make the right decisions in a lot of situations. All we can do is try it, and I'd rather go in with both eyes open than just one and just flipping a coin here and making that decision. So I encourage everyone to reach out to me if they have questions or concerns, or if you're bored, you got nothing to do, and you want to follow a lot of these bills that are going on down there, please follow them. Hey, reach out to me. I know other individuals do just that. So I can use a little help. I'm also willing to listen. I return phone calls and whatever else. I do the best that I can, but like I say, it's my first year in the Senate. But I do find it easier to, bless you, I do find it easier to maybe disagree with 29 members than 149 members. So the conversations are much easier in the Senate. And I don't disagree with 29 members, but I'm just saying, if that possibility existed, it's much easier, 29 versus 149. But I've enjoyed my time there. I'm glad that, the voters put me into the Senate, because I do enjoy it there. I look forward to going back. The
Is it just because the seats are more comfortable, Bob?
Then there's the seats. The seats they have in the well, where they sit in the House, those things are like historically, they should have been removed a long time ago. You like tipping over. But Senate seats, both in committee and in the chambers.
It's only funny because it's true.
It is true. But anyways, I won't take up all the time here, but please feel free to ask me questions, whether it's here or offline or whatever. I thank y'all for having us here, and look forward to talking with you folks. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Senator Brock?
Just to continue along the discussion of seating, it is also much easier to fall asleep in the Senate than it is and that perhaps is one of the downsides. I wrote a paper op-ed, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, talking about what it's like being in the legislature, and in it, I asked people to remember the movie starring Bill Murray a number of years ago called Groundhog Day. Remember that?
Yeah.
It's a case in which an individual finds himself in an endless time loop, and every day that he wakes up, it's Groundhog Day, same day over and over and over again. That's what it's like to serve in the Senate. I'm in my 6th term now, and we're talking about the same things that we talked about before, over and over and over again, and it seems like problems never actually get solved. They get addressed, they get talked about, they get dealt with, but often they're not solved because it's not that they're insoluble, but in some cases it's pretty close. Money is always an issue, and money is an issue, and certainly an issue in this session. In the past 3 years, we've had huge amounts of influx of federal money that's enabled us to do things that we have not been able before. We have more than one third of members of the body this year are new, who have not had the experience that we've had in past years, of which before the pandemic money started flowing in, every year when it came time to balance the budget, it was more and more difficult to do so, and we had to really stretch to be able to do it, because Vermont is the only state that is not required by law or by its constitution to balance the budget. And regardless of which party's in power, we always balance the budget. That's been a tradition, and I think it's a really important tradition, and it's difficult to do. As we look right now, our budget this year as passed is about $8.5 billion. Now, if you look back, say 3 years or so, we were in the 6 million plus range. So we've had a tremendous increase in the amount of money that we're spending. Now, some of it for cogent reasons, again, dealing with the pandemic and the end result of the pandemic. But the things that worry me the most is as we look at the amount that we're spending, in many cases, we're spending into the future and not spending federal pandemic largesse, but we're spending money that we have to raise from the taxpayers of Vermont. And that's going to become, I believe, increasingly difficult. Our state economist has warned us that our revenues are going to perhaps slightly fall and then begin rising very, very gradually into the future. But our spending, in many cases, of things that we passed this year, seem to suggest that we're going to have continued amounts of increase in cost that we're going to have to figure out somehow how to pay for that in future years. And of course, we look at you because that's who's going to pay for it. And there's a limit as to how much we can do that. We have in our Constitution, Article 18 of the Constitution, that says these are the things that are essential to the preservation of liberty, one of which is frugality, which is a word that I have never heard mentioned in all the years that I've been in Montpelier. Frugality is never on the menu, but it needs to be. And it's not that the things that people want to do are bad. They're always good. They're things that people want. And the problem is balancing the ledger as to the good things that we can do compared to the available resources to do them. And that's where the difficulty lies. Now, I think if I look at what I think the really important issues are that we have in Vermont, the critical issues that for our future, more than a couple come to mind, but those that are sort of at the top of the list right now is the demographic crisis. You can never go into a business in Vermont, in any town in Vermont, without seeing a help wanted sign. And you see businesses trying, and I know that those of you who are involved in the social services, personal services, businesses which NCSS and others really are in that business. It's difficult to find people. It's difficult to hire. It's difficult to retain. And it's a really serious problem in Vermont. We have fewer workers than we had just a few years ago. And everybody stands around and says, well, why do we have 20 to 28,000 workers, jobs that we have available that we can't fill? And part of it is because of the aging of our population. We've had substantial amounts of retirement, and this is true in state government, as well as in the human services sector, as well as certainly in businesses. And that has been a major cause of our problem. We've had people coming into the state, we've had people leaving the state. You know, we haven't had a tremendous loss of population. But that is a problem. And the second problem, which compounds our demographic crisis, is our housing crisis. It is a time in which we have extremely low availability, particularly of rental housing, throughout the state. It's critical and most obvious in Chittenden County in the Burlington area, but it extends up here. I had not too long ago a woman who works at the medical center in Burlington, she's a nurse, and she's living in an apartment in Highgate. And the reason is because that was the closest place and the only place that she could find housing for herself and her child. And that's a story that I hear over and over again. Of the things that we did in the legislature in the past session, one of the things that I think has been tremendously important is we passed S-100, the Homes Act. It's a bill that takes a broad look at the challenges that we have in housing, both in terms of building new housing, in terms of expanding subsidies to homeowners, to first-time home buyers, to look at issues such as how we can get housing built in more places and built more quickly, how we can look at the missing middle, which is the part that we rarely have looked at in the past in terms of middle-income housing, or which also is a major challenge. Expanding the amount of housing that we have available by expanding the ability of people to build duplexes or to add accessory dwelling units in homes that we have. You know, if you go in St. Albans, you look at all the large old homes that have 4, 5, 6, 7 bedrooms, and for the people who are living there, it's difficult to get rid of the house, 1, and 2, it's difficult to pay for it, but 3, how do you expand the amount of living if you have restrictive zoning that prohibits that? And trying to get a balance between that need and also the need and desire of communities to manage their resources themselves without having the state interfere, that's a delicate and difficult balance. But I'm proud to say that we created, hopefully we came close to that balance. Everybody was slightly dissatisfied with the bill, which is usually a sign that it's a successful bill. And that we will begin to chop away at what some say we need 40,000 additional units of housing within the next 20 plus years. That is going to be a tremendous challenge to deal with. So there are a lot of bills that we dealt with this year. I just pulled out this morning, it's on the governor's website, there's a list of bills that have been passed that have either been signed or vetoed this year, and it's one place you can find a list of what the General Assembly did And so if anybody wants to look at it, that's one place that you can find it. And it goes on and on and on and on, and I won't try to cover all those things. But in terms of being able to respond to questions that you might have about what we've done and why we've done it and why we've made the kinds of decisions we've made, you please, when we get to the question and answer session, we'll be happy to go into them. But we'll be back for a veto session on the 20th of this month. And I'm not sure if we're going to do it in the 3 days that we've allocated. There are a number of vetoes that the governor has made, and again, the governor's website, you'll see letters covering each one of those bills as to why he's chosen to veto them. They include vetoes of the budget. They include vetoes of S5, which Senator Norris has described, the Affordable Heat Act, and there are different opinions among the parties as to what that will do and what that will cost. There are other vetoes that have controversy, such as the child care bill, which he vetoed this past week. The child care bill is interesting. We allocated, and everybody knows that we have a child care crisis in Vermont. And the reason for that crisis, again, there are various opinions as to why that's the case. Some say that we caused it ourselves by our changes in policies. Others say that we need high quality child care. We spend a large amount of child care right now. The governor's budget included somewhere plus $50 million in additional money out of existing resources to add to child care. The General Assembly chose to add something like $150 million in annual. These are annual recurring expenses for child care going forward. The question more than anything else is, can we afford it? And that probably is, and with the 50+ billion that the governor had suggested, that would make us, tie us for first in the nation. We're very high right now in the percentage of monies that we allocate and the amounts that we allocate to child care. Now, with what we've done now, we're way, way ahead, assuming that that bill stands, of what's contributed to child care compared to any state in the country. And one of the dangers that you sometimes have when you give benefits, you make it so attractive that people come for the benefit, and whether their contribution equals the benefit is a challenge that you've got to look at. Those are some of the things that we'll be dealing with in the veto session and some of the things that we'll be talking about. There's likelihood that we'll have another session, probably in the fall. We're looking right now at impeachment. And there's an impeachment study. Representative McCarthy is a member of the committee that is going to be dealing with this, and I'm sure he'll go into it to some extent. But the sheriff, newly elected sheriff, is one of the people who the impeachment investigation is dealing with, and the other is the state's attorney, who also was recently elected in November for the first time. Those are going to be challenging issues to deal with. It requires a vote of 2/3 of the House, and impeachments always begin in the House. The House, very much like, if you recall, the impeachment of the president, the 2 impeachments, same kind of process. It starts in the House of Representatives, and the Senate acts as the jury, and both bodies have to come to a 2/3 vote for the impeachment to go forward, and we'll have to wait and see how that goes. That's about it, and I think I've talked enough.
Okay, thank you, Senator.
So if you go through Groundhog Day enough times, can you celebrate your 40th and 60th birthdays on the same day?
That's not a bad idea, thank you.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, the representative.
You're never going to live that down, Stephanie.
It's always the case for me in Franklin County, where I am a member of the leadership, and now I'm a chair, not part of the House leadership team of the majority party in Montpelier, and always a minority in the Franklin County delegation. So I think that Senators Norris and Brock started to talk about the breadth, and you get a sense of what we're doing. I guess what I would say is that just my committee, the Government Operations Military Affairs Committee that I chair, has an expanded jurisdiction where we were taking on issues like the changes to election law, which are now kind of all combined in H 429, which is in the Senate, That includes some things that Senator Norris touched on that I think are almost universally supported, like opening up not only electronic ballot requests, which are available now for overseas voters, military service people who are serving overseas, and disabled Vermonters can request a ballot electronically right now through a secure portal, but actually returning and voting their ballot and communicating securely to their town clerk through a vendor. That's something that we're going to pilot if this bill passes that I think is really liked. There are also some controversial pieces to that bill. The expansion of ranked choice voting, which was S32, and it's now part of the H429 package. I'm a cautious approach supporter of ranked choice voting. There are a lot of logistical challenges and tabulation challenges with how you do ranked choice voting if you were going to do it for every election. So the approach with the H429 or S32 package was to really start with the 2028 presidential primary, because there's one question on each of those ballots, and local elections as an opt-in for municipalities where the voters decide that they want to choose to have their local elections by ranked choice. So elections law is one. We deal with the Department of Liquor and Lottery, so we didn't make a whole bunch of changes there, but I think there are concerns both on the public health side that I'm sure some of the folks who are part of the partnership and actually have weighed in on. One of the things we did with the miscellaneous alcohol bill that we did this year was extend for a couple more years the ability to buy to-go cocktails from restaurants. That seemed to work out well during the pandemic and not cause public health issues, but we're kind of taking a little bit of a cautious approach on that and making sure that we're not expanding any kinds of problem drinking or DUI and things like that. The miscellaneous cannabis bill, which I've made sure to tell everybody does not include the solid concentrates or higher THC concentrations. This was more of a housekeeping bill to make tweaks to policy around now that we have an adult use market and dispensaries that are operating, here in our communities, that we're keeping an eye on what the Cannabis Control Board needs in order to regulate that to maintain safety. There was one incident where there was a prohibited fungicide used that made a person who consumed the cannabis sick, and that was flagged. Figured out what happened there, and now we're increasing the lab testing in order to help prevent that from happening in the future. So cannabis policy, elections, liquor policy, and then just the functioning of government. So we're looking at Agency of Digital Services. We're setting up a cybersecurity council. I think that's H291. To try to make sure that we're getting ahead of if one government agency is being attacked. We've had a bunch of municipalities that have come under attack from hackers and ransomware, that they're able to communicate statewide, and we can see where there's coordinated attacks on the critical infrastructure and the information systems that we have across the state. So digital services is in our wheelhouse in GovOps. And then the thing we spent the most time on in GovOps this year was around public safety. And I would say under that broad umbrella, started to talk about regional dispatch. So there's language in the budget that the House and Senate worked on that came out of a bill that was in Senator Norris's committee in GovOps that I think will start down a path of finally figuring out, are we going to set up regional dispatch kind of the way we have it in Franklin County, frankly, statewide? Are we going to try to get some of the towns that are leaning on the Vermont State Police a little too heavily and not sort of paying into how we dispatch emergency services statewide? I'm really proud of the collaborative work we did on S17. S17 was a bill to start to look at some of the challenges we've seen with sheriff's offices statewide, and thinking about everything from who's going to make sure that we have the ability to have standby services for relief from abuse orders, courthouse security, all the way to making sure that there's accountability in the way that the finances are managed with sheriff's offices. We saw some not necessarily illegal, but some concerning things happening in a couple of counties with sheriffs as they were leaving paying big bonuses out to a bunch of their staff. And that was an area of concern. And then some of the things that you all have heard here in Franklin County with our newly elected sheriff and the state's attorney. I'm serving as the vice chair of the Special Committee on Impeachment Inquiry. That's a mouthful. But we've been meeting in this off session and are taking testimony both Thursday and Friday this week, tomorrow and Friday, and digging into both of those cases. And I really want to reiterate some of what I've said in the press, which is that this committee is concerned about the behavior and some of the statements and things that have been on the record, criminal cases and allegations that were in a report in the case of State's Attorney Lavoie. But what we're interested in is doing our own investigation, looking at the facts, and seeing if articles of impeachment are warranted. That's what this committee's job is. So we're at the fact-finding and investigative stage right now. A lot of that work has to be done in confidence in executive session, so you'll see that. You're not going to see a lot of news stories, I don't think, in the next few weeks as we get people to come in, and some of the things people are testifying about are challenging and could put them in the position, fear of retaliation, losing their job, et cetera, if they say the wrong thing about their boss. So we're trying to be very careful about that. So that's some of the stuff we're working on in the off session. The last thing I want to say is to pick up on what Senator Brock was saying. The biggest disagreement that I think Democrats in the House and the Senate and the governor have is around the spending that we're doing on mostly childcare and housing. So the governor's budget recommended was a little over $8.3 billion. The final House and Senate passed budget, H 494, was a little over $8.5 billion. So we're talking about a $190 million nominal difference in the budget that the governor vetoed. But in there, to Senator Brock's point, is a commitment that we're going to spend $100 million plus every single year on childcare, and that we're going to have a payroll tax in order to pay for that. Is what's in H217, the childcare bill. And I understand that when we think about how do we make Vermont an affordable place to live, that having payroll tax might seem like a counterintuitive way to do that, but we know that childcare is not affordable. We know that childcare is keeping a lot of families and workers on the sidelines. When Senator Brock talked about the help wanted signs, I'm thinking, well, this is part of what the people who support this bigger investment think we can solve with this. And I understand that reasonable people can disagree on that. And I think we, all the senators and the House members in the Franklin County delegation, have done a good job of disagreeing pretty agreeably. But we're kind of down to it with this veto session of needing to decide, are we going to make that big investment or not? There's also a lot more money going out the door faster in the House budget for the development of housing that was in the original governor's recommend, and there is a modest amount more to aid in some of the transition with the motel exit program, the ending of the motel voucher program, and the exits that are happening right now. And the conversations I've had with some of you who are on Zoom and in this room about how we can best help our neighbors who are unhoused or underhoused have really led me to believe that we have failed a lot of people in our community, but that we need to prioritize the development of permanent housing, and that there are some bright spots here where we're moving fast to bring some new housing online. I think we have a lot to celebrate in our community with landlords and the partners, organizations in this room who are helping make new units available in like converting old housing stock and bringing that online. The VHIT program, which I know Senator Brock's been involved in supporting to help landlords bring new housing online. I know a landlord right downtown that is adding a couple of units to an existing building with some of those funds, and those will be permanently affordable apartments for families. So we do have a lot of those bright spots, and the budget makes a big investment in that. So I'm going to be supporting the budget, and I really hope that we're able to get it done in hopefully not too many more than 3 days, because I have a day job and don't want to lose that with all this serving on committees in the off session and whatnot. But I really appreciate, Joe, what you said, but our job isn't the hard job. Many of you are actually on the ground, and your programs are doing the best you can with really limited funding to help people who are really in a tough spot. And I know a lot of you, and I know the work that you do and how hard it is. And we're doing our best to help with the limited resources we have. So thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Representative McCarthy. So now we will go to our Zoom attendee, Senator Renner. You are next.
Thanks so much. Like Senator Norris, I'm a first timer in the Senate, and unlike Senator Norris, I was not in the House first, but I did have 17 years of experience in local government, 12 on a select board, and other years being a citizen activist. So I looked at the grassroots for a lot of information because people with a penchant for a particular issue often dive in ways that we just don't have the luxury of doing. They get to watch meetings over and over again. They can dig in to notes. They can make public records requests. So that's been fascinating for me to be on the other side, once again, of the grassroots in receiving help, not being that help. As I learned in local government, but as was reinforced for me here at the State House, there are many sides to every issue. Just when I thought the bottle bill was a no-brainer, I had calls from people from Casella and other folks who were concerned and had legitimate sounding reasons for not backing that bill. And there are costs involved and reasons for us to perhaps double think why we might do that. And while I did support it with my vote, that was just one of many bills where I was reminded all over again that it's important to understand why some people see the glass as half full and some see it as half empty. Two bills that I voted no on include the climate bill, S5, that Senator Norris mentioned. I consider it the Unaffordable Heat Act, looking at where the bill originated, who it benefits, and who it harms, provided me all the evidence I needed that my 4 no votes are what indeed my constituents wanted. I also received nearly 1,000 emails and phone calls telling me to vote no. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm there to represent the people who sent me there. S100, the housing bill, is another one that sounds like a great idea. If you're a developer, perhaps, or if you're someone who's looking for housing. But as we've learned, contractors don't want to build affordable housing. It doesn't pay for them to do that. Visiting affordable housing in one of the towns in my district, I was reminded all over again that we have a big problem with inspections, with code violations. And when residents of this particular building complained that they didn't have heat in the winter, they didn't have air conditioning in the summer, and they couldn't get hot water on a regular basis, they were evicted. So we have all kinds of issues around housing. We have these short-term rentals that have popped up, and except in Burlington, I don't believe they are regulated anywhere else in the state. I think that we could clamp down on the number of people that are buying up real estate for short-term rentals. Lots of things we could do besides just building more. And by the way, that 40,000 unit number that has been thrown around and used to justify S100 for many months has been retracted and readjusted down to maybe 30,000. I look forward to seeing that also adjusted further as we get real about what we need to do, what we can do, and how we can preserve the Vermont that we all love without having it overrun by housing developments like the state that I left. I served on the Agriculture Committee where we had a number of pleas from farmers, especially those in organic dairy. We allocated, I believe in the end, almost $9 million to assist them. So that will be held up as this budget goes through the machinations in the next couple of weeks. Organic farmers suffered especially last year because their dairy prices, their grain prices went through the roof. There was a huge grain shortage. They have to have specific feeds for their cows. And there was a big, big expense for them that they had not anticipated. So we're looking to make them whole for last year's expenses through one of the bills we pushed that became part of the general fund budget. I'm also on the institutions committee, and that deals with capital budget. Capital budget did pass. That pays for more than 230 state buildings, maintenance and renovation, plus a building that isn't in Vermont, the Vermont Hall at the Big E in West Springfield, Massachusetts. That building alone requires $1 million of repairs and renovation next year. I'm proud of all kinds of bills that the Senate did pass, including the child care bill, S230, which I don't know if anyone's mentioned that so far. That's what I call the suicide prevention bill, also known as a gun control bill. It provides a waiting period before the purchase of a firearm. It also insists on some safe storage. It leaves it up to the gun owner as to how they store their guns, but it does provide for penalties should that firearm that someone owns be used to harm someone else, or even to be brandished by a child or a vulnerable other person at others. So I think S230 is a sound bill. We, of course, passed SHIELD bills to protect healthcare workers if they provide services to reproductive healthcare services to folks from out of state. We've got Vermont Saves, which is a new bill, S135, that allows employees of employers that do not already provide retirement savings plans to tuck away 5%. It's an opt-out, so if you don't say you want to opt out, money will be tucked away from every paycheck. And when you leave that job, you will have a Roth IRA with some money in it. And I think it's a great idea to encourage retirement savings. Of course, there's a sports betting bill that passed, which I have some concerns about, but I did vote for it. A hugely popular bill. One of the reasons we did want to pass it is because we're losing revenue as people do online sports betting out of state. So what Vermont is trying to do is capture some of the revenue and some of that activity and keep it in state. I could go on all day. I won't. Look forward to answering questions that you may have, and I thank you for this time.
Okay, thank you, Senator. And thanks to all of you for your commentary this morning. Now, at this point, I'd like to open it up. Individuals have questions about certain bills that are impacting the work that you do. I know that there was a lot on the docket this session, as we've heard, about childcare. The legislators have also done a lot of work to support the Parent-Child Center network throughout the state of Vermont, which NCSS has one of the Parent-Child Centers across the street. Our designated mental health agencies are going to be supported this year. I know they've got two different percents. One is for developmental and intellectually intellectual and developmentally disabilities, that part of our company, and then the other being mental health needs. So there was a lot of work being done to try to support in various ways the work that we and our sister agencies across the state do. But what I'd like to do is open it up for what is important to your organization and ask any questions that you may have.
One thing I'll mention too is I saw a comment in the chat about having the microphone closer. So there are a few microphones. If anybody in the room is sharing, if you can try to project just a little bit more so people on Zoom can hear you, that would be fantastic. Thank you. We have a hand, Matthew.
Oh, this is Nancy LaFleur from Auburn, Vermont. I have a question to all my legislators. What's the outcome is going to be if the governor vetoes the child care bill? I know there's a payroll taxes that most individuals don't want to see, but for me and the communities across Vermont statewide, what is that going to say to the constituents of Vermont that supported this bill moving forward and hoping and dreaming that we'll finally be able to get this over the finish line. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I can take that one briefly. Hey, Matthew. So the governor did veto H217 yesterday. Based on his veto message with the budget, I don't think that was a huge surprise. Based on the numbers of legislators, the tripartisan coalition, I think in both the House and the Senate, that supported the bill, I do believe that we'll be able to override the governor's veto on the child care bill. So I think we've got another chapter here in the next couple of weeks, but I have a feeling that bill will pass. And then the bigger question really is about the budget. And I also believe that there were 17 progressives and Democrats, 5 progressives and 12 Democrats who on the last night of the regular session voted no on the budget and voiced concern about the end of the GA housing, the motel vouchers. Some of them have been reassured by some of the steps the administration has taken, actually, and some of the calls that they're hearing from folks who are working on the ground that getting the budget passed is better than delaying that or putting the funds that are in that budget to support housing in jeopardy. So I'm thinking that we're probably going to override the governor's budget veto as well. So that's but that is more uncertain.
Senator Brock.
Everybody is still head counting at this point on all of these things. Budget override, veto override is possible. It also is not necessarily a given fact. Notwithstanding that, though, we have to have a budget by the beginning of the year. And in the event that the budget is vetoed, I think that 2 or 3 day session is going to be a little bit longer because we've got to come up with a budget that is workable and passable. Events change. One of the things we haven't talked about is the effect of the federal budget deal. Part of the federal budget deal is significant. It's significant potentially to Vermont, and we don't know all the details yet. And one of the reasons is because there's a clawback, a huge clawback of money that was allocated for COVID that has not been committed, that has not been drawn down, and that money is being clawed back. That means that money that is going to the state and is in our budget assumptions, it's not necessarily money that we're going to in fact get. The net effect is we're going to have less money to spend going forward. One of the things that the federal budget deal does is it reduces federal spending by a considerable percent over the next year and then going forward, while our spending is rising. The delta of that is even larger than what we anticipate as a cost. And we don't know all the impact. We don't know, for example, that one of the pieces was millions of dollars to be allocated to fixing our very broken and tired unemployment compensation system, the system that crashed and came close to crashing further during the pandemic. That's in dire need of repair. And now we know, based on the clawback, that we're not going to have the federal money that we were counting on to be able to do some of that work. That money's got to come from somewhere. And we have to understand in Vermont, as I mentioned before, that we have a limited source of revenue. And that requires us to make hard choices between doing which one of the good things we want to do that we can afford, and unfortunately leaving on the side those things that we can't. So we're going to be facing some challenges over the next couple of weeks, and we won't necessarily have all the answers.
You know, that is something for all of us to remember, is the fact that all of this money that came into this state over the last couple of years, that it's not permanent. It was one time. And with it being gone now, how do we go about doing what we need to do? And when I had said earlier, you know, Vermont only has a pot of money so big, I always state that. Obviously, we all want our piece of that pie, but the pie is only so big, and we're not a massive state. And without some of this federal money that came in here, you know, we have to readjust some of our thinking on what is realistic. And let's face it, there are areas we're very concerned about all areas. I mean, whether it's housing, the homeless, whether it's mental health, substance misuse, on and on, youth that are, you know, wayward youth. It's immense. But yet, we need to try to address everything that we can as fiscally responsible. And I think the word that, and I've never heard the word, by the way, in a meeting that I've been in for many, many years, Senator Brock, of frugality, I think you said. I seriously have not heard that word in decades. So, but that's reality. And I think we need to really be realistic.
I see Senator Renner's hand up. Would you like to unmute and go next?
Thank you, I would. Speaking of money coming from the feds, the COVID money may be over, but there is now Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act money coming. And one of the things we had to wrestle with on the Institutions Committee, which again is the capital budget, was how do we find $9 million to draw down, in some cases, 12 times that amount from the federal government to repair things like wastewater management systems that are decrepit and getting worse by the day in many Vermont municipalities. We had a number of folks come in from different towns to talk with us. And one fellow said, hate to admit it, but we still have some wooden pipes. And another person said, we got a little duct tape going on in our system. And it's just chilling to think that we are so close to so many disasters happening in our wastewater treatment systems, and that this federal money could perhaps not be drawn down by us or used by us to make those repairs on these systems that are way past end of life in many situations. A lot of them were installed in the 70s, a lot were installed way before that. So there is more federal money to be had of a different sort, but it does take money on the Vermont side to draw it down. And so that's sort of an interesting conundrum for us, because we felt really strapped this year as to how much we could spend on the things we would normally spend in state buildings because of this federal money that's tempting us to draw it down. Thanks.
Thank you. I see two hands up. I'm going to start with you, Jess. I saw your hand up, and then we'll go to Denise next.
Thanks, everybody. Sorry I have to log off in a second, but I just wanted to say to Joe's point that in my work, I get to strive for the betterment of our community and society in multiple ways, both in the mitigation of poverty and the work that we do at Community Action to improve the lives of very vulnerable individuals. And also in the taxes that I pay from the work that I do. It's a real privilege to be able to work and contribute to society and these costs. I'm proud to support my family. I'm also proud in my work to be able to have capacity to support these programs and services and the larger community. So thank you to all the legislatures for the work that you do. Thank you to all of the participants today for the work that you do in this community and for the multiple ways that you contribute.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jess. Denise?
Yeah, I just want to comment on what Senator Irene said and just kind of the tone of the conversation, you know, the words frugality and abundance, and like, how do you manage all of the pressures of a budget, but also thinking through the impact on if you do not do the work, right? Like in addition to the role that I play at Northwestern Medical Center, I'm the vice chair of the Citizens Advisory for Lake Champlain and have the privilege to work with Senator Brock on that committee. And he's really, I think, done a really nice job challenging our committee to think about how we come to the legislature. And really, when you're thinking about wastewater and the investments that need to happen in wastewater systems, you're not just talking about that community, you're talking about the downstream impacts of if you do not act, right? And if you think about that's in my mind, that is an example of an investment that needs to happen so that the future generations of our Vermont community can thrive and live in a healthy environment. Sitting kind of at this intersection of health and environmental, like human health and environmental health, there's so much intersection, there's so much connection, and it's so important that we think about the two when we think about population health and environmental health. And if you do not act, what are the impacts and what are the costs further down the road that you're giving to the next generation? Right. And so those are the things that I would like to challenge our leaders in the government, in the legislation, to think about. And I know that you do, and I know that you're concerned. And I get, there is a budget, money is finite, as my husband reminds me frequently. It's not something that grows on trees, but when there are opportunities to leverage funding, like how do we design, how do we as Vermont, which has a very small population, very small tax base, think to the future and think to how our actions today are impacting the future. And I would go to housing, right? Our actions in the past are leading to the situation that we're in right now, that we don't have enough homes for people to live in, right? That are impacting families and people in our own communities that can't find housing. People can't move to Vermont right now to take jobs because there's no houses for them. So I think we have to think about, like, not only the today and what's happening right now in the moment, but also the future, and how these actions and the decisions that we make, how they impact what will happen or what Vermont will look like 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. So thank you. And I do appreciate the work you do. And I appreciate you coming to the meeting and always sharing what's happening in the session with us. That's it from me right now. Can I say one thing though? On next, I'll put it in the chat, but the CAC is hosting a meeting at the, Lake Champlain Basin Program Steering Committee is hosting a meeting on an update on Missisquoi Bay on the progress. So the Quebec government and the Vermont government are coming to St. Albans City Hall for a Lake Champlain Basin Program meeting, and they're sharing information about an update on the progress, the cleanup progress that has been made in Missisquoi Bay. And I will put the date and the time in the chat.
Thank you, Denise. We had one more hand in the room, and I also want to be mindful of the time, but do want to give Matt a chance to say something as well.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. I'd like to think of myself as I was born and raised in Vermont, that my heart is the shape of Vermont and it's beating, but hopefully not, because that'd be a major health concern. But, it was so special. I guess what I'm getting at is Vermont feels like a special place. It is, here we are, a small little state, but we are working with one another to try to move on to that next stage on what we're trying to do, right? And I just wanted to say thank you to the legislators and for being here, because far too often do you look at the media and then you see people arguing on screen all the time, and it's so hard because as someone that's obviously not in that situation, I think, well, where's all the critical thinking? It seems like there's way too much in-group, out-group, Republican versus Democrat. So I really appreciate that you four come together and just talk, and it was nice to see our politicians just be human. So thank you for that. I would also just like to, just say too that, growing up, my grandfather, he had a wonderful phrase and he connected it to, the presidential seat. But, he reminded me that how much pressure it must be. You have constituents like from all over, thousands, millions of individuals that are talking about all of these different policies. And then they finally look over at you and say, all right, Mr. President, what do you think? The amount of pressure that you guys go through on a daily basis, I couldn't imagine that. So again, like Joe said, hat off to you. I would just like to, again, in that respect, I'm someone that truly does believe, genuinely believes, that the best way for us to get through all of these challenges is through unity and critical thinking. alone, we can't really do much, but together we can move mountains. And I know we've all heard that quote before, and I do believe that. So it's not necessarily a question, but more of admiration. So thank you guys for representing us. And I truly do hope as the bills go on, just remember that there are a lot of needs, as you have already pointed out. And human services could definitely use that extra support when possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. That's it. Okay, well, in respect of your time, I want to thank our legislators for being here again this go-around, and we wish you all the best. I know you're reconvening on June the 20th, and best of luck, because I know you have a lot to deal with. Senator.
If I might, Joel, just in response to Matt's comments, is thank you very much, first and foremost. But we find ourselves here in Franklin County being able to sit down at a table and talk very professionally and respectful. I think every one of us, to include all parties concerned here, agree on certain things that we do need, such as childcare, homelessness providers, family leave, budget, housing. The only thing we disagree on is how do we get there, okay? So it's always nice to have checks and balances, and I think that we respect everyone's opinion, and I'm sure that goes both ways, but what I have learned is governing is not easy. Okay? But I enjoy it. As strange as that may sound, I enjoy it, and I'm thankful that I'm down there, and I look forward to going back down again, but and just to comment when Senator Bach was talking about the budget and, it has to be here by the first of the year, I just want to reiterate that that's July 1st.
Yeah, right.
Right. First of the year, July 1st.
January 1st.
But anyways, thanks for having us. I appreciate your comments, and I look forward to, I don't know when we can make it again, but we look forward to coming again. Or I do anyways.
Yes,
We're
and
planning
you.
a fiscal New Year's Eve party.
And certainly you will all be, well, you're all welcome every month, but of course you're tied up most of the time. But certainly we will have you back in December pre-session, so we look forward to that as well. So once again, thank you very much. Thanks everybody for being here this month. Really appreciate your time, and we'll reconvene next month on July the 5th. And have a great month and a good 4th of July, and we'll see you soon. And again, best of luck to the legislators on June 20th, and however many days it takes for you to resolve everything. Okay, thanks, everybody.